Chapter 3. A friend kindly sent me a copy of a small book, Hebrew and English, Some Likenesses, Psychic and Linguistic, by J. Courtney James, M.A., B.D., Ph.D. Its general argument is summed up in the following words. There is a similarity, perhaps difficult to define, which is more fundamental, and which constitutes a more striking argument than anything based on vocabulary alone. The argument is psychological rather than philological. It has to do with the order of mental processes rather than with syntactical construction. This is why the Hebrew Bible can be more easily and more accurately translated into English than into any other language. The author, The author is very wise to say, let it be clearly stated at the beginning that there are words in English where derivation is probably Hebrew, but these in themselves do not constitute evidence of identity. Words like camel, cherub, sack appear to be of Semitic origin, but a few words which can be attributed to Hebrew sources in this way really mean very little. Far longer list of words from Greek and Latin can be easily produced, but they would not prove that the early Britons spoke Greek or Latin as their racial tongue. And we might add, would not these longer lists tend to prove that there was a strong psychic affinity between the British and those who created the Latin and Greek tongues? The author is also to be commended for stating that ex cathedra statements on the relation between Hebrew and English must be read with caution. Statements that English is based upon Hebrew all lack scientific confirmation. His book makes no attempt to demonstrate the racial descent of the Anglo-Saxon people from the 10 tribes of Israel. But his purpose is rather to indicate certain modes of thought and forms of expression characteristic of both ancient Hebrew and later Celto-Saxon based on psychic and linguistic data. This is not a proof of identity of origin, but in its way and measure, it is a supporting probability. The author aims at considering mind similarities rather than verbal identities and structural likenesses. He is correct in saying that the Hebrew language is not adapted to the expression of abstract ideas, and that the Hebraic mind did not wander away upon imaginary conditions nor exhaust itself in academic theories. It employed language as the medium for revealing deep emotion in regard to the real factors of human life. The Hebrew mind did not go in for mere theory. The realism of the biblical writers is a fact to be noted. In his book, The Language of Palestine, 1920, the same author states the mental differences of the Hebrew and the Greek races. The Semite is a poet and word painter, not a logician and scientist, a free chronicler, not an expert historian. The Greek is philosophic, precise, finished. He seeks to convince and strives after literary effect. In general, it may be said that the Semitic language is psychologically correct. Greek is mechanically exact. Greek was philosophic and academic. The Semite was imaginative and pictorial. Greek was deductive. Semitic was intuitive. Hebrew sentences are made up of a succession of coordinate propositions, a disregard of particles, and an inconsequent phases expression emotion. The Semite was impulsive rather than deliberative, poetical and symbolical rather than logical and dialectical. Such people must vivify every object of nature, and every object thus endowed with life is regarded as male or female. The absolutely impersonal, the real neuter, is inevitably excluded. Nothing was indifferent or neutral. The Semite was instinctively theistic, and the deity cannot be neutral. The Aryan was materialistic or haloistic, and to him things real or possible could be neutral. Again, the scientific element failed the Hebrew author completely. Dr. James' objective appears to be to prove that the British race is really Israel. If so, he does not appear to possess the true Hebraic mind or mentality. It is no congenial task for us to have to castigate anyone for his attitude toward the sacred scriptures, but the differentiator is devoted to reverent research of the sacred scriptures, and naturally we find it difficult to endorse the opinions of one who calls in question and criticizes the veracity of the scriptures. We do not believe the account of the Tower of Babel is mythological or merely symbolical, nor do we believe Genesis 11:1 has no historical value, nor do we doubt the historical character of the Abraham story. That the later writings of the Old Testament were composed in a degenerate type of Hebrew is not what one would expect from a true Israelite. King Alfred's English of over 1,000 years ago is quite unreadable today to ordinary British people. But the latest writings of the Hebrew Old Testament show extraordinarily little difference in any way from the language of the oldest parts. How can anyone be a real British Israelite scholar when he writes that the Jacob-Israel story, Genesis 32:28 through 30, probably preserves a certain element of historical reality? In a chapter upon the Semitic mind, the same writer informs us that the English translation of the Bible not only equals, but if anything, it excels the original. Why then have so many sought to correct and improve upon this English Bible? Why have the latest revisions been made? As some encouragement to British Israelites to look to the British language for proof of descent from ancient Israel, Dr. James produces a list of 10 English words which are likened to 10 Hebrew words which have fairly similar meanings and consonants. These English words are stem, nitra or niter, cable, harass, skill, flit, simile, measure, paradise, and mystery. Of these, only two are native English words. Flit and stem, originally Stephen, S-T-A-E-F-M, or stem, S-T-E-M-N, while skill is Scandinavian. All the others are from Latin or Greek or Old French or Arabic or Persian. Such an argument only weakens the case for British Israel. All the natural languages in the world are derived from Babel. Every language has lost certain consonants in its words due to lip shape, food, climate, and temperature, height above the sea, invasions, etc. Hebrew is not the original tongue of mankind, or the intuitive speech of Adam before the fall. Hebrew preserves the debris of its original condition. It could no more retain its original form than the Hebrew race could remain free of sin. In some respects, modern English is more ancient than the most ancient Hebrew we know. Does this prove that the original Hebrews were descended from an ancient British or English race? Few books deal with the etymology or word origins of the Hebrew language. It is not easy to find direct connections between many Hebrew words and English words. Yet there is clear proof that English preserves to this day the sound of the letter W, which was lost in many cases in the Hebrew of 3,590 years ago, and became lost also in the Greek a few centuries BC. In the following examples, we shall spell Hebrew words minus their modern vowel pointings.